Okay, this is going to be using the StatCrunch module that comes integrated with my StatLab. We're going to find binomial probabilities, and instead of using the formula, we're going to use technology for this. And this is what the screen looks like for the particular problem in question, which is question 4.2.19. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and taken some screenshots so that it'll make it easier to see what's going on. The question states 47% of men consider themselves professional baseball fans. You randomly select 10 men and ask each if he considers himself a professional baseball fan. Find the probability that the number who consider themselves baseball fans is A, exactly 8, B, at least 8, and C, less than 8. If convenient, use technology to find the probabilities. You'll notice on the left-hand or right-hand side of your screen are some key buttons, and if you left-click the button that says StatCrunch, you will bring up StatCrunch. And this is what StatCrunch looks like. So let me show you how that works together after we go through all of the different pieces here. You're going to have a number of menu buttons at the top of StatCrunch, and you want to left-click Stat, and that's going to bring up this particular pop-up menu right here. So then you're going to left-click where it says Calculators, and that will bring up another pop-up window, and you want to left-click where it says Binomial. And this will bring up the binomial calculator, which looks something like this. And down here I've marked the areas that are selectable and or fillable fields, and then there's the compute button. So let me show you what it looks like using StatCrunch straight from the problem. So here's the problem. And I'm going to go over here to the right hand side, and you can see this button right here where my mouse is hovering that says StatCrunch. Left click it, and up pops the StatCrunch program. It's actually web-based, and it can either be used under Java or JavaScript. I would recommend the JavaScript since that's going to run on a number of different platforms. So we left-click Stat, left-click Calculator, and left-click Binomial, which brings up the binomial calculator. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bigger, so hopefully we can see it once it's compressed and put into YouTube. So what we're going to do is we are going to do the calculations. Remember, we're looking at 47% of men consider themselves professional baseball players, and we're going to randomly select 10 and ask them if they consider himself a professional baseball fan. So when we're looking at this, we remember that for binomial distribution or for binomial probabilities, n is going to be the number in the sample. In this case, it's going to be 10. P is going to be true, and in this case, we know that 47% of men consider themselves to be baseball fans. So we're going to write that as 0.47. Q is going to be the opposite of true, or in this case, false or not baseball fans. And we would write that as 53%. And that would be the same as 0.53 in decimal format. Remember that these two must add up to 100%, since this is a binomial probability. Once we do that, we're going to go ahead and take this value right here, n equals 10 and 0.47, and we're going to put that into StatCrunch. Notice that n equals 10 is already there. That's default setting in StatCrunch. Here where it says P, I will put 0.47. And down here I have the option of choosing less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, less than, greater than, or equals. For this first one, we want to find P of 8. Exactly 8 are baseball fans. So I left-click equals. I'm going to type in 8 right here, and then I'm going to left-click compute, and this is going to be my answer right here. And since the problem has asked me to round to the nearest thousandth, I will simply round and go ahead and select 0.030 as my answer. So let me go back to this, and we're looking at the probability that exactly 8 are baseball players, and that's going to be 0.030. Now the next part of the question asks at least 8. So this was part A, and that's going to be the 8. So part B is the probability that X is greater than or equal to 8. That's one way of putting it. Or we can look at it as the probability of 8 plus the probability of 9 plus the probability of 10. And if we were doing this by hand, we would use the formula, calculate the probability of 8, the probability of 9, and the probability of 10, and then we would add them together. Instead, we can go ahead and use StatCrunch, which will make our life that much easier, because you'll notice in this selection menu, I can go to greater than or equal to 8, and it automatically computes for me. In this case, remember that we are going to go ahead and round to the nearest thousandth, so this will be 0.0365 rounded, or 0.037. And so then I can just simply write this as 0.037. For part C, we're to find the probability that it is less than 8. In other words, the probability that X is less than 8. Okay? Now, one of the things that I could do is use the complement rule and 1 minus the probability that X is greater than or equal to 8, which in this case would be 1 minus 0.037. But let's go ahead and use StatCrunch for this. So just to verify that we're doing this correctly, if 1 minus 0.037, that's going to be 0.963. So let's, as I said, use StatCrunch to confirm that. So we go to StatCrunch. Notice that we're going to change the arrow from a greater than or equal to simply less than 8. And it automatically computes 0.963. And we will go ahead and round that, as I said, 0.963. And that's exactly what I got using the complement rule. So then the last part is, or that is the last part. And that's how you use StatCrunch to calculate binomial probabilities. And therefore, this is what your answer should look like in Pearson's My Stat Lab.